Hi, Amy. Hi, James.
Good evening. How are you?
Not too bad. How are you doing?
I'm highly blessed, staying out of trouble.
Thank you for joining us. What do you mean staying out of trouble?
I thought I'd leave the trouble for tonight.
Good evening, Lolette.
Good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. I can't complain. The weather outside is quite nice.
Well, it can be better.
Well, you make the most of what you got right now.
Yes, you are right. Hi, Amy. Just a few minutes for the rest of the speaker to join in, like 2-3 minutes, and then we can kick off.
Okay.
Yeah. Lolette, where are you joining us from?
Sorry?
Where are you joining us from?
Oh, I'm in London at the minute.
Okay.
So I live between London and Jamaica.
Is that where the weather is shining?
That's right. At
Hi.
the minute.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Amy.
Hiya.
I'm good, thanks.
We have James also on the call.
Okay.
He's just keeping quiet that he's keeping out of trouble.
Stay in the background.
In the background.
How many people have you got registered for the webinar?
We got over 100 people registered.
Oh, wow.
Normally the turnout, it tends to be around 50-60%.
Okay.
Yeah, so most of the time.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So have you guys had a great week so far?
I'm a bit cold today. I'm just like, I don't want winter to start. It's a bit cold today. I'm like, oh, it started off sunny and I thought, and now I'm just like, oh no, I've forgotten I'm in UK. We've had such nice weather, haven't we? Since
Yeah.
I think the weather has also been affected by COVID.
yes. Yes. But thank God for the nice weather at the beginning of it, because I was saying psychologically to be in such a difficult place when if it was really grey and bad, it would have been horrible. Yeah. Yeah.
You're right, because from March down to April all the way, weather just started to become a little bit warmer. Where I suppose if it happened in December, January, you'd be a lot worse. And even on your electric bills, that as well. So, yeah, you have to look on the bright side sometimes.
So true.
Can everybody hear us at the moment, including the people attending?
Yes,
yes, I can hear you.
Who's that?
I wasn't sure if
Yes, we've made it live 5 minutes too, so people can hear us.
Yes.
Yeah. I think we go Oyinka, so probably we can just start in the interest of time, and we're just missing one speaker, but he can join us along the way. Oh, okay. I found him. Yes, I think it. Okay, we got Da Costa also. He was in the attendee section.
I've got a very noisy chair, so every time I
Right.
move, you probably can hear me.
Okay, we got everybody now. Probably we can start. Yeah. So thank you everyone for joining us for our One Africa Network evening discussion panel. So today we'll be looking about inclusive growth, mainly looking at tackling economic challenges and barrier in the UK. The discussion panel is for 90 minutes, so we're going to have a bit of, the speaker will be given around 1 hour to share their thought and perspective, and hopefully for 20 minutes we can take a bit of Q&A session, depending how it goes. Before we start, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Eugene. I'm the co-founder and the CEO for SSD Consulting. So SSD is I'm a strategy and management consulting based in UK, but with representation in the US and African market. And I'm also the director and chair for One Africa Network, which is a subsidiary and a corporate initiative for SSD. And I'm also the CEO for African Business Chamber based in Birmingham. So today, before we start also, I just want to give a bit brief about One Africa for those who are new to the initiative. So One Africa Network is a membership-based social development organization that focuses on issues affect Black and African businesses, entrepreneurs, professionals, mainly in the UK, but for the last 1 year now, we started expanding and engaging members across Africa and other continents. So we are committed in terms of advancing entrepreneurship, innovation, excellence, inclusiveness, and sustainable economic growth. So we do it in many ways through research, advocacy, consulting, focusing on some certain areas such as policy, economy, business growth, innovation, technologies, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, creative, and the cultural industry. These are some of the sectors that we've been focusing because these are the key, mainly the key drivers of economy. So over the last 2 years, we've hosted many activities, including events such as Face to COVID-19. Everything is now virtual, remotely, but we hope when the situation improves, we're moving back to face-to-face events, masterclass, business growth activities, conferences. So we have a lineup of conferences next year, including the first UK and Africa Diaspora Summit, which we can share more information if anybody is interested. So we've also been fortunate to host a number of high-profile speakers. I think over the 1 year, we've hosted over 300 high-level speakers from diverse industries, sectors, professors, academia, government officials, to come and share their perspective and insights and various ways in which we see we can empower and enhance our community. So those are some of the speakers. So today the discussion, sorry, I think there's today the discussion, this is Anela, the discussion looking about inclusive growth. Just to set the scene before we go into the topics and also welcome the speakers. I'm sure a majority of you are aware some of the issues are faced by Black and African communities in the UK. To be honest, it's like a double-edged sword. We continue to see so many issues over years. This includes not only the Black communities and African community continue to struggle and leapfrogging in the economy compared to their peers like Asian or Chinese, and we continue to be used as a stepping stone in the society and not being valued as other communities. And I'm sure some of this issue has been escalated or highlighted by the impact of COVID-19 to the BME community, in addition to the Black Lives Matters, which also have came into perspective. So, and also we continue to see many of us or communities struggle to break down some of the barriers or to make it through their careers or access to economic opportunity, which we hope to discuss some of these things. And majority of our community also are, including businesses, have been hard hit by COVID-19. Many small businesses, we don't know how many will be able to reopen again because majority of them are micro and they continue to struggle over the years. And we've seen, I'm sure you've seen also many reports that continue to come out from like the government, HMRC, Bank of England, and other areas, looking the contribution of various communities in the society. African and Black communities are always at the bottom of the pyramid, and the contribution in the economy remain insignificant. Majority of it, of course, I don't know if we are our own cause, because some of the issue we don't see ourselves supporting each other, patronizing each other, trying to keep the pound within our community. We also time we find we are working against ourselves. So many issues that we continue to see, but we hope COVID-19 is going to also to act as a transformation to encourage better ways we do. So today we have a series of topics, but before we go into the discussion, I just want to give 1 or 2 minutes our speakers to introduce themselves. So the first one, we have Kitenge. She's an expert in education management, specialist and at the UNICEF, and also board member for Forum African Women Farm. It's a farm. And she does other things. I think she's on comic relief and other department. Second, we have James Adeleke, who's the CEO for Generation Success. So hopefully he'll tell us more about some of the success practice we can take away. And also he's worked on various initiatives in the Commission on the Youth Enterprise Report. Third, we have Lorette Hudson, who's a very experienced person and in many ways working, especially educating and supporting executive leaders through coaching and various other activities, and also a professional and CEO of One Hand Cup Club. And the fourth, we have Oyinka Adebayo. She's a development economist and the CEO for Neo Enterprise. By the way, congratulations. Recently, we learned about you. You won the funding to train women in coding. So hopefully you're going to tell us more. What does that involve and how you're getting on, which is a great initiative, and we're excited to learn more about it. Fifth, we have Yemi, who's the founder and the CEO and talent hunter at Engage Transformation. And finally, we have James Kitenge, who's a commercial advisor at the Cabinet Office and founder of Pamoja Network. I believe Pamoja is a Tanzanian word, but he can tell us more about it. So if I start with Kitenge, probably to introduce yourself a bit and give us a bit background in terms of what you do and how COVID-19 has influenced you in the last 6 months or so. How are you coping?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much, Eugene. And I'm Dr. Kitenge. My doctorate is in Education and International Development, and I'm also working on the looking at issues on bringing girls into schools. So working on gender, inclusion of women in financial economic activities, and also ensuring that the women challenges are taken on board. And this, of course, is exaggerated, especially when we look at the issues that the Black African women are facing in the economy and the challenges that they face. Yes, COVID-19 has not been an easy time where we have been looking at the challenges that are affecting the women and as well as the exclusion. There has been a lot of stories around retrenchment, people losing jobs as part of the adapting of the economy. And we know that the economy has been already facing a downturn, and there is a downcasting in terms of the economy, and that is affecting the women and many of the people that we are working with. What we have seen already so far in the work with the women is that there is a shift in terms of the paid work that is supposed to be done by the economy, and it has shifted unto the women. The paid work that is supposed to be done, but this has not been paid. It has been done by parenting as well as by taking on roles, even more of caring and caring for all families. And this has a specific impact on the women, and particularly the Black African communities in the UK, where it is very difficult just to have people and having women having to make provisions of care at home. So thank you very much for having me. Have a good evening.
Welcome, Chikondi, and glad to have you again. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you.
Ah, okay, glad to have you. Sorry, one of my computer just went off the Balakiri. I got 3 computer running at the same time, so I didn't realize one went off. So next we have James Adekele. James, also please introduce yourself and tell us how your world has been over during the COVID-19 situation and how the crisis has affected you, whether positive. You are happy, probably has been in the positive direction.
Yes. So thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. My name is James Adeleke, and I am Chief Executive of an award-winning social enterprise called Generation Success. And we are working to create a world where your career is not determined by your birth. Now, COVID, where do I start in terms of its impact? I guess in line with the theme of today, I want to start by saying sometimes your disadvantage is your advantage. So what I mean by that is when I first started Generation Success years back, I had to work several part-time jobs, and throughout the journey, there was times where we were like 2 minutes from bankruptcy. And now we've got 14 members of the team, which is amazing. But that experience in the early days meant that when we went to lockdown, my first reaction to the team was, let's focus on ourselves internally for the first 2 weeks. Let's transition to a virtual team, and then let's see what we should do going forward. And having that cool head, having that experience from the past really kept us in a good position. From that, we had to focus on creating a 3-year plan. But the immediate impact of COVID was that our contracts were either cancelled or paused. So we run a graduate scheme for an investment bank called TD Securities, where it's our biggest contract, and we do everything from attraction, filtering, assessment centers, aftercare, and prior to COVID, they were asking us, can we expand into Ireland? And immediately our summer program was cancelled, which was a massive moment for us. But we had to focus on our beneficiaries and looking after them. And now we are back on the table with them. The second major contract, which was kind of postponed, was with the Mayor of London. We won £150,000 to get unemployed youths into the STEM sector in December. And we had kind of been set up and geared up to go. And because of COVID, we had to kind of postpone it. And we had to let go of kind of 2 people that was hired to be our outreach team. So we had that period. We had to kind of transition. We had to make sure that we were okay as an organization. We had to then start to focus on having a remote team. So we had to bring in a mental health champion internally. We had to really focus on our training and our learning and development. So that was the first initial part of COVID and the impact. And the second was Black Lives Matter. You know, a lot more companies were focused on the for change. And we added something to our 4 pillars called systemic change. And it's meant that over the last kind of few months, I've engaged with members of the government a few times in discussions. And we've even got the business secretary speaking at our focus group and our Equality Activate Change conference on the 24th of September. But one of the key things we're trying to drive is we need to remind businesses that as we recover during COVID, they need to keep equality at the top of mind. That is equality when they're thinking about who to let go when it comes to redundancies. That's equality when they're thinking about who to retain, because we can't have a recovery without everyone else, without the whole segment of society being part of that change. So right now, everyone, it seems to be going back to normal, and we're having more discussions about future programs, and we're looking at how we can take advantage of the Kickstarter scheme. So we've got several employers who have signed up and have committed to creating 100 jobs for our young people. But yeah, so it's interesting times, partially scary, partially exciting, and I firmly believe that you hold your future in your hands, and it's about what you do with it. So yeah, COVID, let's bring it on.
Welcome, James. It's exciting, and I think the best word I've heard so far during this crisis, they say never waste a good crisis. This is a great opportunity for many of us to transform and better ourselves. So before, let me invite Lolette also to introduce herself and also to tell us a bit about how the situation has been on her side and how the crisis has affected her and some of the work she's been doing over the last few years.
Okay, Eugene, thank you very much. And thank you all, the panel. You know, thank you for the opportunity to come and share my story with you. I've been in business now for 20 years. This is my 20th year. And One Hong Kong Club started off because I was watching a TV program and it was saying that African Caribbean people are underperforming. And that story has been around ever since I could ever think, and it still continues today. So I said to myself, what would it take to make a difference? Whenever I go to graduation ceremonies, I see thousands of Black graduates, but it doesn't reflect in terms of the jobs and the opportunities. And the other thing is how we ourselves as a community see ourselves as leaders. How do we see ourselves as visionary leaders? I mean, I do workshops, I do master classes, and I ask the question continuously, who in here see themselves as a leader? And no one ever put their hand up willingly, you know, say, well, I'm a leader. No one ever take ownership of that. So I'm saying, if we're not seeing ourselves as visionaries, if we're not seeing ourselves as leaders, if we're not seeing ourselves that we can make that difference, we can make that change, we can actually transform society, we can develop great businesses, you know, we can do it, we're creative, we've been inventors for years. So what is it that caused us to be so underrepresented? So I started to look at leadership from the perspective of Black people. You know, we are so innovative, we're so creative, yet it doesn't reflect in terms of the work we do. So my thing is about preserving the heritage and the culture of our ancestors. The older generation, I mean, take for example, my parents, they came here, they were entrepreneurs, they came, they didn't know where they're going to live, they didn't know where they were going to have jobs, they didn't know what was in front of them, but they operate from a place of not knowing. And they basically, you know, bought properties and done all sorts. And what I'm saying for the younger generation coming up, how are we really developing them to understand those fundamental key wisdom and the tenacity and the commitment that the older generation, you know, why is it that we're still not practicing it? Why aren't we passing down those commitments to these young people, or even our own community? So that's what I'm doing, is developing leaders, really looking at who are we as a people, you know, with the vision. If you have a vision, it's impossible to do anything big by yourself. So One Hand Can't Clap is around teamwork, collaboration, partnership, leveraging the power of your influence, and understanding that whatever it is you're going to do, it's totally impossible to do it by yourself. You need other people. You know, you need to leverage your community, leverage your people around you. If you're going for a job, leverage it, tap into someone, have a conversation. I'm sick and tired of hearing as a community, we don't work together. It's not true. I can demonstrate that in so many ways. There's not anybody on this planet that can do anything by themselves. You have to tap into other people. If you're going for an interview, speak to other people who's been there before. And I'm really passionate about this. You know, really look at, why are we not having that conversation that we're leaders? Why is it that, you know, you speak to another Black person and you ask the question, are you a leader? And the answer will always be, I don't know, I'm not sure. So what does that mean? If we're not believing that we're leaders, we're not going to move forward. And that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Rolette, for that brief introduction. Of course, you just attached something that we are going to look into in detail on our agenda, is about why is it that Black and African continue to underperform. Yes, you've highlighted that we continue to see many of us graduating, and the majority of us have so many qualifications, MBAs, PhDs, but we continue to struggle to make it through the career path into the leadership. At the same time, of course, something that continue to come up time and at times, Black and African are 3 times more entrepreneurial than our white peers. But majority of them, they start businesses and they fail in 2-3 years. They go the same circle again, start again. So and our small SMEs don't progress and thrive like our white peers who just started small businesses and within a few years they thrive. So I don't want to go into detail before we get. Let me invite Oyinka also to. I know she's also keen to join. Oyinka, also, if you can introduce yourself and give a bit of brief about some of the things you are doing and how your new project is getting on.
Hi everyone, good evening. It's good to be here. My name is Oyinka Adebayo. I'm the CEO and co-founder of an organization called Neo Enterprise. And what we do is that we use technology, hair, and beauty as tools to economically empower Black women, specifically underserved Black women. So we're currently made up of two brands or 2 organizations, if you like. One is called Neo Network and one is called Neo Hair and Beauty. So Neo Network essentially exists to increase the career and business prospects of underserved Black women in the community. And so that's where the Black Coder bootcamp comes in, where we've got all of the press from. And it's just such a privilege and I'm so grateful for it. So the Black Coder bootcamp is specifically to basically train 50 Black women in the Midlands to become full stack software developers. And we've been working with various organizations, making sure that they're employed at the end. So when I started kind of developing the projects and actually planning it and looking at the outcomes, one of the things for me that was really important, and it's a similar vein to most people here, is I didn't want people to just have the skills. So just as Lorette was talking about, a lot of Black people go to university and you see thousands graduated, but there's not a lot of people employed. So for us, success is them getting employed. So we've been in conversations with multiple corporates, as well as startups and SMEs. So from Microsoft to Google to Apple, all the way to small startups with just 3 people in their team. To actually work to employ these ladies at least 26K a year. So that's the Black Coder Bootcamp. And we've also got Neo Hair and Beauty, which is essentially a platform that connects stylists to customers under the use of immersive technology. I can't talk too much about what the technology is about because we're still working on the IP of it. So yeah, that's kind of what we do. I'm really, really passionate about economic empowerment. I studied master's of development economics, and my thesis was focusing on poverty, especially the role of poverty on Nigerian migrants in the UK, and how Nigerian migrants, kind of suffer a lot less. So, you might have people who may have studied PhDs, masters, and even good degrees in their home countries, but they come here and they're not able to maximize on their skill sets. And I just wanted to explore why that was. So really, really passionate about poverty, really, really passionate about leveling the playing field specifically for Black women, and if we want to boil it down, specifically for African and Afro-Caribbean women. So yeah, that's a little bit about me and a little bit about the work I do.
Welcome, Oyinka, and great to hear from you and some of the amazing work you are doing. So if I go next to Yemi, also if you can introduce yourself and tell us about how some of the things you've been doing and how you're getting on in the recruitment world, and how you been affected in the last few 6 months, because we've been seeing a lot of job losses and in the pipeline to come. So
Hi everyone. So just to give you a bit of background from me, I was a finance director, so up to 2017. I'm a qualified accountant, and actually a very ambitious individual. So actually, when I was faced with a barrier in my career, I decided that I was not going to sit back and have it. So I went off and got myself an MBA. But in actual fact, what I learned from that was that I actually was not happy being stuck in a corporate world. I wanted so much, I always wanted to run every business that I went into. And as you can imagine, those CEOs were not happy about that. So, I soon realized that actually I was going to constantly get frustrated because I always wanted to run my own thing. And the only thing to do was just set up my own business. The seed to setting up my own business, actually, because I was a professional, very risk adverse, so if you talk about being an accountant, not many accountants just, will pack in a 6-figure salary to go and set up a business. But it was during my MBA, one of the lady that came to present to us, reason why she set up her own business was because it was possible, so we always tend to box ourselves in. So it's either you go down the professional world or you go down the business world. In actual fact, you can do both. It is possible to do both. Right. So my business is called Engage Transform. We are a talent acquisition company and development. I always had the development to it because, as everybody said, all you wonderful speakers have said, a lot of people in our community are very, very well educated. Okay. We are extremely educated, well educated, but the bit that we don't tend to invest in is the coaching. There are unwritten rules, okay? So when you get past a certain point in your career, it's no longer how competent you are at the core of the job, is how you present, is how you maneuver in the room, and nobody's going to teach you this, unfortunately. And particularly us in the community, nobody will, unfortunately, we don't get the nudge and the somebody encouraging us before the meetings. So we have to, so I'm a big believer in coaching. I really think that we have to invest in coaching. I always say to my guys, because I tend to work at the mid to senior level, I always say to my guys, invest in this, because when you go into that boardroom or that meeting, all the people that sat around the table, you may think they only got there because they're white and privileged. In actual fact, they've invested in actually developing themselves because they recognize that there's other skills, what we call, a lot of people talk about emotional intelligence, that will help them to sell whatever idea they have, okay? So when I was an accountant, I was one of those ones where I would do all these excellent reports and I'd be so excited to go into the room to go dada. And in actual fact, I didn't. Everybody wasn't clapping and been really excited. It was because people don't like surprises. Most people don't like surprises. So what I should have done is I should have met each one of those people prior to the meeting, get them on my side so that when I present to the group, they're all on, they're all sort of, they're all with me, so I don't have to work so hard. How has COVID affected my business? It's when it began, I'm a sort of one of those sort of challenges to me. I see it as an opportunity. I thought, no, I'm going to do lots of reading. I'm going to do this. I had all these sort of wonderful ideas. And my business being a sort of talent acquisition business, I was a little bit nervous about, can I go to companies and say, do you want staff? When in actual fact, people might be getting rid of people. So I came into it thinking, this is not going to be a problem. Midway through it, what really affected me most wasn't so much on the business side. What affected me was actually the number of deaths, the number of deaths and the number of, this horrible wave of depression, across the country. And it actually, and I just thought, wow, it really did get me a little bit down. And then I had to pick myself up again and go, right, okay, in actual fact, it has grown. But what has definitely grown is the brand. What has definitely grown is the ability to fight for our people, and unashamedly. No longer do I care if it's going to impact my business. I'm just saying, you guys need to confront some of this stuff. And a little bit like James is, that sort of equity, sort of, I'll tell you guys, we have to take advantage of where we are at the moment. It's not going to be around for long where we get the opportunity to actually speak openly. I know, I say to my guys that are working in big corporates and they're nervous about talking, I say, don't worry, I will be your voice because I've got nothing to lose, right? So let's take advantage of this time. There's never been a time where people actually want to listen to what we have to say. So I'm excited about the future. Being an accountant, obviously, I look at the overall, I'll talk about it later. From an economic perspective, there will be more challenges coming. But I do think there are ways we can, there's also going to be lots of opportunities. And that's, so my business in terms of how we work didn't affect as much because we've always been actually, we've always worked from home. So yeah, I'll talk to you a little bit more when I have my session about what we can do to optimize the opportunities coming.
Thanks, Yemi. I can see the enthusiasm out of you and the energy. That's all we need, people to break down the barriers and those kind of energy. Yeah, thanks for that intro and the amazing things you're doing. And finally, if I go now to Jason. Jason, also, if you can give us a brief in terms of what you do and some of the work you are doing with the Pamoja network and probably some other things, and how COVID has either transformed or reshaped your career and your business as usual.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Eugene. And it's actually great to go last so I could hear everyone else's stories ahead of me so I can find out where I fit in. Funnily enough, I think if as part of this panel, I suppose what I would be able to represent is youth leadership. So it might perk your ears a little bit, Laurette. I founded a company, a social venture called Pamoja Network. And the reason why I founded it is at university in my final year, I built an Africa Summit with a small team, which has now been attended by Aliko Dangote. It's been attended by heads of state and things of the like. And what I found there was a spark that lit in me, working with other young people and understanding the potential of what we can create and how we can leave a long-standing culture, which our Vice Chancellor now embeds as part of his proposals to build relations with Africa that we have an Africa Summit. And when I left that, I went on and I founded Pamoja Network. Pamoja is Swahili for together. It's the core of our ethos as a team. What we're trying to do is focus on job creation for youth. And we do that by working with entrepreneurs on the continent. So we've just finished our pilot project with a young lady in Kenya who has an agribusiness. And what we do is we work with young professionals who are both on the continent and in the diaspora. And we build consulting teams to support these entrepreneurs. At the moment and I suppose this touches on to how COVID has changed our sort of proposal, our operating model. We're now looking to partner with African hubs and work alongside them who have cohorts of entrepreneurs. So we're speaking to one in Ghana, speaking to one in Congo, where I'm from, and things of the like. I suppose the core as well of why these things are so important to me is youth unemployment on the continent is very high. In fact, 10 to 12 million young people are coming into the workforce each year, but only there are 3 million jobs on the continent being created each year, which leaves a shortfall of about 2 in every 3 young people like myself are out of work. And these are people who are just as intelligent, just as skilled, if not even more so, but just lacking the space for opportunity. So I think what we wanted to do was to foster and build on the culture that is already there on the continent of entrepreneurship and help scale business faster and help at some point allocate funding towards these young entrepreneurs. And I suppose my other contention that I'd like to bring up beyond youth leadership is the fact that the capital flows for young entrepreneurs, for local entrepreneurs, is extremely low. And it's something that we're experiencing both here on this side of the world. In fact, white founders from the US are 47,000% more likely to get funding when based on the continent in comparison to if they were based in the US or in Canada. So I think those numbers are quite telling when you think about it. When you think about the disproportionate amount of money going towards people who actually understand the environment that they're working in, these are the kind of things I want to tackle. So I suppose for this panel, a lot of what I will focus on is perception and accelerating growth and youth leadership. To meet you and be on the panel.
Thanks, James, for that brief introduction. As you can hear, we've got people from all walk of life doing things from different angles, from leadership to women empowerment to youth empowerment to Black, and the most amazing things is like everyone on the panel is an entrepreneur who's not only doing their normal job, but they also gone on to launch their own initiative. And this takes us to the first question. Over the last few months, and of course this has been raised by Black Lives Matters, is that the reason why we don't prosper in the economy is because Black and African will continue to focus more on social and political issues, but we are not focusing more on creating economic solution. So that means that, and you know, from any economy, if you are not creating any economic solution, that we are not making us valuable in the society, which is reflected in many ways that I think in simple terms, money is power. Whoever has the money call the shots. And this is reflected in from our peer society, like the Asian, the Jewish, the Chinese community. When they come to this society, if you can see, they are the one running businesses, they are the one controlling most of the contributing to the economy, to the tax system, and that'll give them also the leverage to influence policies and a more stronger say. Unlike our Black community, we tend to focus more. Is that true? How can we encourage more people to focus on creating economic solution that will lead us to sustainable growth? Because even those one who create solution, their business tend to fail. I think I'm sure, I don't know if any of you have seen like reports. We see a lot of Black business startups starting and fail every 2-3 years. The number of businesses that are starting and failing is quite high than the one that actually survive. So, and the majority of them tend to be from the Black and the African community, unlike the Asian communities. Is it a cultural issues or?
One, for the fact that you have these Africans already here, the Black people that are here in the UK, they are risk takers. They already took the risk. Is some of them, for those that are here first generation or second generation or third generation, they are here maybe because they have been here for a longer period of time. But for those that they are the first generation, they took the risk to come. So they are risk takers and they have been able to invest for a person to get a flight ticket, to get through all the visa requirements for them to be in a country like the United Kingdom, they have struggled and they have worked very hard to do that. Now, when they get here, There are several things that they need. The system is not made, is not, there is a systematic, I would say the systemic discrimination that affects the Black community. The access to loans, the way they will ask for this document and that document, you must have this before you would have this and all that. And then as if that is not enough, there is exclusion. You will hear that even if you are a well-trained professional in any field, they will tell you you do not have UK experience, for example. And I have so many people that are that have been very experienced and good accountants. They will be told you don't have the UK experience to be employed as an accountant. And now what do? They end up a security guard, a care worker, not because they want to do that. Is already there. And now they're coming to the social and cultural norms that we as Africans have. There is, of course, there are barriers in terms of Africans not working in unity to support one another. Many of the Africans are the ones that give each other away. Many of them are the ones that will not want to easily employ another African. And it is a star ticket if you are found on the tables as the only African. For some of them, for some of us, you will feel very bad. It is a shame that you will sit in many tables and you are the only African around. So when we look at these issues, we must be looking at how is it that we find it is difficult for Black people, Africans, or even Caribbean, Afro-Caribbean people to be able to support each other. But when we come to our Asian counterparts and colleagues, they support each other. They will even house each other. They will do all sorts of things. They will employ, they will make sure they have interns in their businesses to ensure that they do have these qualifications and support that which we would not normally be able to have or to give each other. So I would like to say that we should start with the systemic uproot of the discrimination that is constructed within the system. Thank you.
Thank you, Chikondi. So Chikondi, you are saying that the culture, business culture, or I'm from Rwanda or whatever, is the same when you come to UK. It should be, it's the same. And of course, there's other issue. Let me go to James. I see him nodding. No, James, do you agree with Chikonde? Why is it that we are not able to create economic solution? How did you go about creating your own businesses? What's your advice would you give to anyone who want to break away from this cycle and also become either self-employed and also thrive in the economy?
Perfect. Yes, I wish I went first now because that was a powerful answer. I mean, one of the things you spoke about was how can we create solutions to kind of the inequalities that we see here. From the UK perspective, I think one of the things we need to do is try to not change the narrative, but try to make sure that we can engage as much of society as possible in the debate. So there's far too many people who will hear us talk about systemic inequalities, will hear us talk about the need for more diversity and inclusion, the need for more equality within our society, and they will automatically think it does not apply to them. And even though they hear the facts that, during COVID, 1 in 20 Britons had lost their job, it may not resonate with them that actually for Black ethnic minorities, they were almost twice as likely as white Britons to report having lost income and jobs. they will hear the fact that nearly a third of companies have stopped their graduate schemes. And they will hear the fact that, this generation is the most adversely affected generations since the Great Depression when it comes to their, the job opportunities and the economic opportunities for them going forward. And yet they will still feel that they'll see the economic impacts as involving them, but when we talk about actually how it impacts Black ethnic minorities even more, they're like, actually no, that side does not impact us. In reality, it does. We need to make sure that everyone understands that for the last 4 generations, the gap between poor and rich has expanded like never before. That even if you are, that there are now more people living in the UK who are working that are living in poverty than those in non-working households. That even if you have a job security is no longer there. We've all seen how we've had redundancies. We've all seen that there's technological advancements. Uber are saying by 2030, they want to have all their cars automated, which means that there's going to be, I think there was a person talking about the useless population, which is like those who are in jobs right now that will be replaced by technology, and how they will find it difficult to find jobs going forward.
Yeah.
By us kind of pointing this out, by us kind of bringing as much of society on this debate, especially those who are in power. So when we talk about economic growth and economic, inclusion, it's those the 4 factors are land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. And the facts are in the UK that the diversity numbers in terms of who holds those powers in those 4 segments, there is far too little Black people, especially in the UK, who are at the top of that. So one of the biggest things we need to do is try to change the narrative and the perceptions in society and make sure that people feel that they are part of the impact of the problems and they're also part of the solutions for it.
Yeah.
And recognizing that there are the challenges, kind of the systemic barriers, but that the opportunities are right now. So the opportunities are around technology. There's such a massive skills gap when it comes to technology that if we upskill segments of our society to be trained in technology, we can actually be at the forefront, and we can be at the top of the tech sector. And if we invest in upskilling our young people and our people into tech, and kind of the increased awareness of the social inequalities, I think as one of the speakers said earlier, this is a unique opportunity for us to really drive change. And you asked me about how I kind of started the organization. I always tell people that this was, I say lucky, but it was actually, in reality, it was in 2011 when we had the London riots. I was so angered by that. I went home, went to bed, had a dream about the change I wanted to make. Woke up at 4 a.m, wrote a 1-page 4-year plan on a piece of A4 paper, and just went out to try to make that happen. And with every action, create a new momentum. So if people want to kind of start their own enterprise, I'd say break it down into small steps and just tick it off one by one and let that momentum carry you forward. If it's not having clarity in your idea, create a business canvas, and I'll stop rambling to give other people a chance to.
Thanks, James, and great point you raised. And of course, people need to take decision to be able to drive the change we want to see. I think they always say be the future you want to see. But I think one of the questions we keep talking about is changing the narrative. Let me go to Lolette and the Yemi, see if they agree. Do you agree with the past two speaker? I know Chikondi has mentioned about we're not coming forward. I think even me, I've seen it before. I've been invited to a lot of meetings in the government, and sometimes you find yourself you are yourself alone there as a BME person. And I've also asked the question, why is it like tenders or certain things are not trickling down into the BME community? They tell me, oh, these people are not coming forward. We share the information, they don't sign up. So is it that we're not coming forward to it? The second question, of course, James just raised, is about changing the narrative. There's this whole thing, people living in the past, they've been trying to change narrative for so many years. Is it time that they say you can live life from, you can understand life from the past, but you can only influence it from the future? Is it time to accept certain things? We cannot, this narrative, we can't change it. We just have to be more bold and take different aggressive, because certain things has been there, and unfortunately quite a lot of our community are stuck in the past. Either every time you talk to them, they are either still in that colonial mindset, slavery mindset, and this is where they never move forward. So do you agree? Probably let me go to Yemi first. She look like she what's your thought?
You see me leaning forward, sorry. Oh my gosh. I mean, where do we start? So the first thing is, I genuinely believe that too many of our people in our community are stuck in the past. Yes, I do agree there are systemic racism. Yes, I do agree that the funding does not go to the community. All these things are facts. They're not even stuff we've made up it's not an excuse. There are factuals. You know, for example, the ethnicity pay gap is 3.5 billion. Yeah, 3.5 billion, right? So the facts of the matter is the racism, it permeates all of the UK society. You know, we've just recently found that actually, even when the slave trade stopped, it was because they were paid. They were paid to stop, and some of them were still enjoying the benefits. So, but what we have to do as a community is that we cannot no longer give another group the power, okay, to dictate and decide what our future is. All right, as long as we keep saying, there are things we need to bring down and break down. But first of all, I think in terms of our businesses, in terms of business failure, I think one of the fundamental issues sometimes is how much homework did most of those people do before they started. Okay, I'm not saying the business failures is their fault. Please hear. Talent acquisition people and company owned by Black people. Okay, there were very few talent acquisition company that were targeting mid to senior level. Yeah, a lot of people that come into the market, rightly so, are looking at the entry level, because our people are not even getting the opportunity to start at the ladder. I didn't want to be competing with people like James, who's doing a fantastic job at that level. But what I was conscious of is, even if and I say to my client, bring Black people in, fantastic. They're not going to stay in your organization if they keep looking to the top and they can't see anybody that looks like them, right? So what I've created for myself is a bit of a niche to say, look, it's a Black woman, Black owned business. We target basically mid to senior level, and we target professionals because there's nobody else doing it. You can go to Michael Page, they will keep giving you the white male accountant, and even no matter how diverse they say they are. So first of all, what problem is your business trying to solve? And that's the first question. And I don't think a lot of do it. We don't, the excellence is not there. Let's be honest with ourselves, right? I live near Bromley, and we had an African food shop. I was so glad. It was owned by a Nigerian. I was over the moon when they opened the shop, because I was fed up of buying my food from. They were not consistent at their opening time. Yeah, the amount of time I went there and had to bang the shop, literally demand that they open the door, and told them off and just say, look, You're next to Sainsbury's. When was the last time you turned up at Sainsbury's, yeah, at the opening time it advertised and it was closed? So there's lots of stuff we need to do. There is lots of new young people that are setting up businesses and they're doing it right. But a lot of the ones that are folding up, we've not really questioned. We've not gone back to that foundation and make sure that there's a problem we're trying to solve. We brought into our business. Okay, no shoddiness. You know, I speak to myself, but what I say, did you dictate what you did? Did you dictate, you know? So that's what I think we need to address. The funding, I will definitely link Jason to some people. We've now got, like I said, we are in such a present, you know, literally I've got VCs that are saying, I want to invest in Black owned businesses. And this woman, when she asked the question, very few people went to her to present their business. So sometimes they are saying the doors are opening, but for whatever reason, either we don't get to hear about it, but we don't show up. Yeah. I'm part of a minority supplies development, and they give us free training. They set up this award-winning guy to teach us negotiation skills. Guess how many people showed up? 50 people booked, 20 people showed up, right? This guy teaches government bodies how to do negotiation, right? But yet we want to go in front of big corporates and negotiate, and somebody wants to teach you how to do it, but we don't show up. So I think we need to really be honest with ourselves and look in the mirror and go, right, and just the same discipline. And that's why I get nervous when people start a business without having the work ethic. So I think it's great. Yes, I do. You know, obviously lots of people that, you know, the people, you know, quote Facebook and quote all these people that have done fantastic businesses without actually having to work for someone else. But you need a work ethic. And I think that sometimes is missing. We're not lazy people, but I think there's certain areas that we avoid. Okay. So just to summarize, when they started their business, what solution were they trying to provide? How disciplined were they in terms of running the businesses? And no matter what you do, whether you run your own business or you work for someone else, you need a work ethic and you must produce, it has to be of excellence, yeah? If it has, because the people you're competing with, they will literally, they do their stuff excellently. That's it.
Yeah. Thanks, Yemi, and for that robust the discussion. And there are a few things I picked up, which is, of course, kind of come across. Some of our BME community, Black and African businesses, sometimes you find if when you visit them or use them, there's always an issue with quality of the service of the product. I think it's not just you. I've come across many areas. You go to the restaurant, you look at the customer excellence is a big issue. I don't know if it's to do with the cultural issues that affected the quality. The other things you mentioned in terms of starting business, a lot of people, it's called iceberg theory. People only see things on the top. They don't know the hard work at the bottom, the sleepless night, waking up 3 o'clock, the amount of debt, the amount of disappointment you faced. They only see, okay, Mark Zuckerberg is a millionaire now. But if you ask him, he tell you he's started around 100 businesses that have failed. Just one, maybe Facebook became successful. Richard Branson said it quite a lot of time. He used to sell newspaper, started quite a lot, almost 50 businesses failed. So people only see the good thing, the success story, don't see the name. Let me go to Loretta. I know Loretta has been listening patiently. All these people, do you agree with all the perspective, all the point has been raised? I know you are the most experienced and you are working with various leaders. What's your thoughts? Do you agree with James and Chikondi and Yemi and some of the key points they've raised? And what's your position?
I agree with what everyone said, what Yemi said about the consistency. You know, I said to all my clients, if you look at any banks, the banks open at 9:30 every day, and the only time it doesn't open if there's a flood. You know, so what is it about us that we believe that we can run our business anyhow without any structures and any infrastructure? You know, consistency, it's your brand, it's your promise. So you promise that you're gonna open at 9:30. You know, people expect you to be there. So it's that level of lack of consistency. The other thing is, you know, I look back on my parents' generation. they couldn't get loans. They couldn't get anywhere to live. Well, we know the story around no blacks, no dogs, and no Irish, right? We knew about that. And they got together as a community and they set up their own economic power, which is the partner system. I don't know what you call in different parts of Africa, but the Caribbean people, they said, well, if you're not going to give us any loans, then we're going to run our partner system. So one person will buy a house this month, another one will buy the next month, and so they hand over that kind of cash. So all those wisdom, I'm saying that we need to look at it, that the young people coming up, they actually understand that. But my biggest concern than anything else is that the older generation are passing away, and those wisdom of commitment and consistency and tenacity, we need to teach those to enable the young people to understand what was it that caused people like my parents, you know, to buy a 5-bedroom house in Hackney. And, you know, that house now is worth something like 4 million. How did they manage to do it when they hardly earn any money? That's what I can't understand. So the fact of the matter is, what is it that the older generation knew that we're not passing down to the younger generation to enable them to understand economic power? Because these people never earn much money. And if you go certain parts of Hackney, for example, I mean, these 5-bedroom houses that the older generation owned, and now, you know, through gentrifications, that money is no longer in the Black community because the older generation have passed away and they inherited all this big lot of money and nobody knows what happened to the money. So they, for me, there's money in the Black community, but what are we actually doing with it? You know, so that's my question. That's one. The other one, representation. You know, if you can't see it, you can't do it. So we need to look at, you know, how are we actually showing up? You know, how are we showing up to the younger generation? Because I have a passion for young people. Because the fact is, if we're not demonstrating what they are able to see, you know, I was lucky because I grew up in a community where everyone was looking at economic power. If it's not there, they would put it there and they would support each other. You know, all my family owned properties. And it wasn't because the things were easy. It's because they tried the partner system and enabled them to buy properties, send their children to proper school, private schools. So the first generation suffered to enable the younger generation like myself to really see people around us to say, well, okay, when I started my business 20 years ago, there were people I could tap into to actually say, okay, what do I do? When I didn't have any money, I could have gone to an aunt and she'll give me a £500, or I'll go to another uncle and he'd give me £500. So, you know, the money was there in terms of if you want to do something, somebody will be quite happy to help you. So for me, that story around we don't support each other, that's not my experience. I've had people who've gone on before me, political people, you know, Pan-Africanism people, who've actually gone through, who's actually said, you know what, we are going to make a difference. So there are people in our community that is supporting each other. And what we need to do is to find these people, because relationship is so important. Relationship capital, social capital, relationship capital is so important. Build relationship with people who are doing it. Surround yourself with people who are doing great things and really speak to these people and understanding what that means. There's so many people in our community. It's so resourceful, but what we're doing, sometimes we bypass them because they don't wear the clothes that we think they should be wearing. They're not driving the cars we think they should be driving. And so we bypass them and not tap into them. What I'm saying is you don't know who's got the power until you speak with them. And for me, I would not be in business for 20 years if it hadn't been for my community and the people around me who supports me. You know, most jobs, most contracts are not advertised. It's people who will tell you, you know, this is what needs to do, this needs to happen. So that relationship capital for me, relationship currency is so, so, so important. You know, it's not that the opportunities are not there, but it's who you actually surrounding yourself with to enable you to know what's going on. Sometimes, as I said, we don't value each other in terms of understanding what does Yemi knows, what does James knows, what does Jason, what does Jess knows, you know, and really understand that and surround ourselves. Sometimes because people look like us, we don't respect them. So we're ready to go somewhere else because that person might look white or that person might look Asian. They know more than us. I'm telling you, start looking at what Black people know. Yeah. Really tap into and understand what is it that we know that other people don't know. Because you know what? We are the most smartest people on the planet. And we're very, very innovative. You know, we come from the Anansi stories. And at the end of the day, it's understanding where our power lies. Where does our power lies in our community? You know, I've got an aunt, she's 85. I go to her and talk to her and I say to her, tell me, what did you do to enable you to buy a 5-bedroom house? Go on, tell me. Go and talk to our elders and find out what did they do when they actually came to this country. They couldn't find anywhere to live. They couldn't find any jobs. What did they do to enable them to be the people that they are today? And I'm going to stop there.
Thank you, Lolette. You just highlighted a few things, of course. Some of them like a partner system. I know it works well within the Asian community where they put money together to support each other. So I think also our community, that's one of the things they should be looking at too. You've asked the question where the Black African make money, where do they go, where does it go? Of course, we all see they buy nice clothes, nice Gucci bag, they buy nice brand new Mercedes. When they don't, that's where the money goes. A wise person will invest that money into something that will create better opportunity. But Black person, when they get money, the next thing they want to buy brand new car. They want to go to House of Fraser when they never been there before. They want to buy nice, and then they do party. So, so that's where the money goes. So, and also you've mentioned about building smart relationship is important these days in businesses. It's who you know. So sometimes they say you are the sum of 5 people you spend time with. So those are the things. I think let me go to Oyinka. Maybe might bring a bit of perspective since you started the development economics and all these things, all these factors we've been talking about are always part of development economics, cultural behavior, mindset, all these things. What's your thought about what Loretta said, Yemi, James, and Chikonde?
Yeah, I think what everyone said is definitely very interesting. I do think that the narrative is changing though. Obviously, we have a perspective of Yemi, we have a perspective of Lola in terms of like, you know, making sure that our small business, our Black businesses are consistent and have the best quality. But I do think that that's kind of starting. You know, we are starting to be excellent. We are starting to be consistent in our offerings and service, and actually sometimes we even give even better customer service than our white counterparts. What I would say, as small Black businesses, two of the things I think we're missing generally is number one, process and systems, and number two, human relationships. So we talk about we want good customer service from businesses, but are we human to human, Black people to Black people? Are we nice to each other? Do we care for each other? Do we want each other to win? Because the reason why some Black people may not go to another Black person is because they may not be approachable. They may not feel like they're approachable. It's not that they may not be approachable, they may not feel like they're approachable. So making sure that we're developing human relationships. In terms of systems and processes, you know, similar to what Yemi was talking about, we can come up with an idea. Oh, it's nice to do this, but what sustains that thing and makes it last for hundreds of years, or even if you don't want to do hundreds of years, 50 years, are the systems and processes that you put in place so that if, God forbid, you have to go to the hospital tomorrow, somebody else in the organization can pick up that thing because you've already listed out the systems and processes. And these are the things that are the least creative, you know, parts of our businesses. They're the most boring parts of the business, but it's something that we've got to do, you know, and what keeps the wheel running. Now, in terms of like, you know, Black people, if we get money, where does it go? It goes to Mercedes, goes to Gucci. I could bring in economics into it, but you know, when I study economics and study behavioral economics, it all goes down to identity. It goes down to who are you? Do you know who you are? I remember I went to Nigeria 2 years ago. My mom took me to Eko. Eko is like a massive local market in the middle of Lagos, in between Lagos mainland and Lagos Island. And I remember I saw a trader on the road, and I wanted to buy this beautiful basket bag that you find in Zara, or you find in even in a designer shop, and they'll probably price it at thousands of pounds. But then I asked, oh my gosh, this is such a beautiful bag. I would love to buy it. How much would it, how much would it be, sir? And he said, oh yeah, it's an imported bag, and it was clearly made in Nigeria or surrounding areas in Nigeria. We bought this bag from far down, down in East Africa. It's not from here, blah, blah, blah. And a lot of that made me realize, wow, we actually have an identity problem. And wow, we actually have a challenge when it comes to actually accepting who we are and owning who we are and loving who we are. I communicate with my friends who live in Nigeria, and, one time my friend was wearing a really nice dress made by a local seamstress. And I said, can I have her number? She said, no, I don't want to share her number because she's too local. And I'm just like, actually, no, I want to engage with her because I want to invest. And that's what economic empowerment looks like. So for us to truly develop as a people, we have to know who we are, and we have to believe in who we are. And so that means believing in what SSGC CG Consultant does, what One African Network stands for, and what all of your individual businesses, what you do. And also, how can I continue to build that trust is matching, showing me that you have the systems and processes in place. You always know a business that doesn't have systems and processes in place and a business that does, because you can tell how streamlined the communication is. And also, even if there's one person, you won't realize because they have a correct system in place. So that's kind of my 2 cents there. Yemi talked about this 3.5 billion pounds ethnicity pay gap, but I also like to say that our consumer power is something of around 45 billion pounds. So we're higher consumers than we are producers. But then I think the reason why there's so much consumerism is because, again, it goes back to identity. It goes back to, we think that what we put our money in is material things and actually doesn't turn into investment. So now, changing the narrative, we're now investing in businesses. Thank God. You're seeing a rise in Black businesses. You're seeing a rise in young people, putting money into properties. So, for example, my brother's a 21-year-old boy, and he has a property portfolio of six properties. And so we're seeing a change in the narrative. So we're learning from the mistakes of the past, and we're changing the narrative. So I want us to continue to be progressive and also optimistic about the future. So we can address the problems, we can look at the problems, but also what are the opportunities and the problems that we have, because we're creative, fantastic, intelligent people, and let's not stop there.
Yeah. Thanks, Oyinka. Fantastic. You've raised a few things, but one of the key point that stood out was the identity crisis issue. We continue to talk about it, and it keep coming on often and often, where you see people, and they say in the community, if you don't respect yourself or you trust yourself, nobody else will respect you or trust you. And I've seen it like in our community, people are changing their names because, like Yemi, when it comes to recruitment, if I have a long name, it doesn't come across well on the CV, and we tell them, look, if someone is able to read a Russian name or an Eastern European name that is 20 letters, how can they not read the Adeleke name, or how can they not read Oyinka Sola name? Do you need to be called James Smith to pass through an interview, or your CV to go through a logarithm and all those? And we've seen quite a lot, most, like you mentioned, most of our people don't trust or don't want to patronize our own people at the same time. I don't know why, which is another big issue that we need to address. But let me go to Jason. Jason, I'm sure you, as an aspiring reader, someone ambitious, the future ahead is bright, and you've had so many issues that are faced with our societies, communities, and I know technology is also disrupting so many things. I think Yemi mentioned it earlier on, and we did a report a few years ago that within it was meant to be in 2025, 8 out of 10 jobs are meant to be technology driven. So either you need to be AI or IoT or blockchain or whatever, but somehow COVID-19 has brought everything forward. Now everything 2020, every job has to have some digitization, and is making quite a lot of all this manual job obsolete. What's your thought about what the rest of the speaker have said, from Yemi to Lole to James to Oyinka? Where do you stand? What do you agree? What do you disagree? What's your perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I was quite keen even before. I mean, there's one element actually to make this a bit contentious that I disagree with, and I think it's the sort of narrative of young people lacking in terms of the approach. I think it generally, beyond the Black community, any person that you have to convince to show up isn't the person that you want to invest in. I think there's a difference between showing up and there's a difference between needing the skills in order to get ahead. And I think that is where we can do more, or we can open up more. Things like, okay, how do you look at accounts? How do you look at your accounts? What's your cash flow like? How do you set up a social venture? Are you going to set it up as a charity? Are you going to set it up as a LPLC or whatever it may be? So these are the small things. Are you going to set your company up by limited, by guarantee, or by share? So I think those are the things that we really need to focus on in our community. And although it is an issue across the board of getting young people to show up, the people that you work with who do show up will be the examples for the others who don't. And those are the people that we want to really be invested in. So I think I say that because my generation, the whatever you want to call it, the millennials, they understand the importance of having a side hustle. It's almost like a renaissance period. So myself working in the cabinet office and having my social venture, I could be an example as one of them, as well as loads of other people. I know great young Black women who are working on hair care products as well as going to work. I know young Black men who have just worked on an app for barbershop, connecting barbershops, and they go to work in the city. So I think it's a great opportunity right now where us young people are understanding the socioeconomics of the UK and how we've effectively been crowded out, and we're making a market for ourselves, especially because we're living in a community, in a society whereby money is free flowing. We've seen the government pump billions and billions and billions in funds to tackle COVID. So there is money. So I think that's the first thing. I think the second thing, the tech bit, I think this is very important. I wrote an article not too long ago, about a month ago, on the future of work as it pertains to the African continent. And really what COVID has shown, not just in Africa alone, but globally, the importance of digital transformation, and how that's going to affect education. Not being able to come into universities. We saw Oxford and Cambridge shut down for the year and start to do a lot more distance learning. And this will impact young people from losing that physical contact, but now working on a peer-to-peer basis. An entrepreneur that I follow quite closely is Fred Swaniker, and he's built the Africa Leadership Academy. And they really focus on peer-to-peer. They focus a lot more on distance learning. So that's taking in that digital element. The thing is understanding e-commerce, so that we're not focusing on African products across the area to another, starting to...
Oh, James, I think your internet.
Am I back?
Okay, yes, you are back.
Oh, sorry, I'm really sorry. So just as I was saying, so another thing for digital will be specifically for entrepreneurs on the continent, making sure they understand e-commerce so that they can start to export their brands, export their products, and looking at the Africa Free Trade Agreement is something that will especially help with the cross-moving of products and services. So I think technology will have a very big part to play, both the education landscape, the entrepreneurial landscape. And finally, I think the last thing I'd like to leave everyone with is a book, which is called The Mum Test. It's a great test for entrepreneurs who I can see you nodding on in. So I think it's a great tool to use because much of the time, even myself, we focus a lot on telling people our ideas as entrepreneurs and trying to get buy-in for it rather than testing the market for it. So the mum test really taps into that. It taps into what is it that you're trying, rather than telling people about your product and getting their feedback for it, which would be good for my ego. It's trying to get a commitment from them. Would you buy this pen if I sold it to you? And I think that's the difference. That's the change. That's the change from getting people to nod in your idea to buy in and making people into customers. So yeah, from a tech perspective, loads in terms of digital transformation. And Mum Test, please grab that book, have a look at it. It'll really help in transforming potential customers into customers. And then I suppose that's it from me.
Yeah. Thanks, James. I think in the interest of time, probably let me just combine these two questions as we wrap up. I've been going through some of the question, but it looks like we've answered the majority of them. So as a final say, probably from everybody, moving forward, how can we encourage, I know it has been raised by Chikondari around our community also remain less productive. How can we change this negative perception and the narrative and encourage productivity within our community? How can we champion a better future or the change we want to see? And one of the reasons sometimes it pains me is like a good example. Sometimes we talk about diversity and inclusion. And when you look at most of the organization, the people who are actually reading the diversity and inclusion initiative are not diverse, and they don't even believe in it. They're just doing the job for the sake of doing the job. So we've been raising this question to say to companies, say, okay, let the people who are affected by some of these things to lead the way. They should be the one, because they are the one who want to be inclusive. They should be the one championing those things. So from that example, as individual Black and community, Black and African, how can we change all this negative perception and or focus on driving or championing the change we want to see? Maybe let me start with James. James, what's your thought? How can we shape a better future, be more productive, and become more competitive in the society? And of course, take into consideration that this crisis is a good springboard. If you look, I think 50% of FTSE 100 companies were all created in crisis. So how can we use this crisis as an opportunity to transform, change this whole negative perception, look on a future that we are more productive and valuable in the society?
Definitely. So yeah, I guess the first point is from an employer perspective. From an employee perspective, I say take this opportunity as a chance to get yourself around the table. For these discussions, there are loads of organizations who are actively now saying, actually, we know we need to do more. What can we do? So go in, knock on your HR department's door and ask, actually, what are we doing to increase more data talent into our organizations? Don't be afraid anymore, because actually they would like to hear from us. From a kind of productivity standpoint, in terms of, like you said, recessions are a great period for creating, real fast growth businesses. And one of the things I'd recommend is keep an eye on your LinkedIn, keep an eye on your social networks, start to identify who do you know who's currently on furlough, who do you know who may have just been recently made redundant, because those are highly skilled individuals who have a lot of things that they could bring into your business or your idea, who can help you shape your team, and I can help you bring in the structure, the governance that you need to really excel within this period of opportunity. I know I'm just conscious of the time, so I'm just keeping it short.
Lolette, what's your thought? What's your thought in terms of moving forward? How can we transform, overcome this negative perception? I know much has been thought about and create a better future that will help us to become more productive and competitive in the society.
Okay, I got 3 things. 1, spend as much time as possible and all the money you have investing in yourself, first and foremost. Spend every penny that you have investing in yourself. You know, develop yourself, understand yourself more, and really and truly understand who you are as a leader. Number 2, more intergenerational education, that we understand, you know, the older generation, because I think sometimes we don't value the elderly and really understand that they have a lot of information that will make the difference to us. And third, I really build those relationship capital, because when I look at other communities and where they get their money from, how they got promoted, is all around their social capital. Social capital is so important. Sometimes you don't have to spend a penny. If you have the right people on board, will give you all the access that you need. Social capital, relationship capital. Relationship is the biggest currency. Everything I've done, you know, like speaking and doing all the things I've managed to accomplish, is all because of the relationships I've got. If there's a contract going, somebody will call me. I remember there are times like the end of March, I would get a phone call from somebody that says, hey, I've got an underspend in my budget. Can you come up with a program? You know, and I would say, okay, great. It doesn't matter what the program looks like. Just come up with something and maybe has give you some money in that sense. So people will support you if you are reliable and you live according to your brand. So that's what I think that will really move us forward. Social capital, relationship currency, and listen to your elders.
Yeah. Thank you, Laurette. Oh, I can see Chikonde, she's back. I'm sure you are listening to many of the discussion most of the speakers have said. What's your summary in terms of how can we overcome some of this negative perception and the challenges that we've talked throughout the discussion to become more productive and competitive moving forward, using the current COVID crisis and the recession as a springboard?
Yeah, thank you very much, Eugene. I have been following, and I just want to say that using the opportunity to rebrand, people have to rebrand themselves. If they have where they have made mistakes or their character has let them down, it is possible for them to use the opportunity to reflect and rebrand. It is never too late. And I think that it is possible for us as